So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Storytelling Association of California's January 2026, first one of the year genre show. My name's Claire Hennessy, and I'm from 6 Feet Apart Productions, and I'm just the MC for this show. And I'm coming to you from just north of San Francisco in California, even though I don't really sound like it. Now, our tech hope for tonight is the fabulous Prakrati Agrawal. So she's from Canada. So we're getting a bit international. The Storytelling Association of California, or SAC, as it's often referred to, because that's quite a mouthful, is a non-profit membership organization. It's dedicated to promoting storytelling as a living art form. Now, SAC has something for everyone. We've got festivals, workshops, fantastic newsletter, all kinds of performances, both in person and virtual. And we also team up with other organizations, such as people like Storytelling Association, Story Crossroads. And then we get all their programming free or very, very cheap as well. So definitely worth joining if you're not already. Now, the SAC Genre Series is a monthly event featuring about 7 storytellers. Usually they're all SAC members, nominated by their regional storytelling group, which they belong to. And then we have one guest from out of town. Everyone is paid a $50 honorarium, and if you're interested in telling at a future genre series, talk to your storytelling group, get yourself nominated, or you can contact Ed Lewis, who is the genius of this particular series, and I'll put contact numbers in the chat and things like that. Now, the genres are held every third Wednesday of the month, and each month will highlight a different genre. You can have personal stories, folk tales, historical stories, myths, fables, and then tonight is tall tales. So, as I said, the genre series is the brainchild of storyteller and SAC board member Ed Lewis. He also works very closely with Tina Tomiyama, who's here tonight, and the tech host, as I said, for tonight is Prakrati. Now, each teller will have a maximum of 10 minutes for their story. Hopefully, they'll keep to that as much as they can. And then at the end of the show, they'll have a chance to come in and share what event they've got coming up. Now, as I said, the theme of tonight's show is Tall Tales, and I'm really looking forward to it. You're on for a real treat. I found out a little bit about everyone's story when at the rehearsal, and they're just going to be so much fun. Now, don't worry if you've missed it or need to go off halfway through or something, because the show, as you know, is being recorded, and then that will be uploaded to the SAC YouTube channel in a few days. Okay, that's it. I think let's get on with the show. Now, if you do want to, before I say that, if you want to comment and things, it's lovely for the tellers to have comments. But if you could wait till the end of each teller's going, because if the chat windows pop up and some people are telling on a phone, that actually interrupts their screen. So that would be lovely, but just wait to the end of each teller. Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to get on with our show. So our first teller tonight is the wonderful, incredible Linda Yamoto. Linda has been nominated by AASIA, which is the Asian American Storytellers in Action, and she's telling from just over the bridge from me in Oakland. Off you go with your story, Linda.
All right. I'm going to share with you a story that was translated from Japanese to English by Tomoko Sugano, and I tell it with her permission. Mukashi mukashi, aru tokoro ni. Long, long ago in Japan, there was a happy-go-lucky young man. People would say he was uki uki, which meant he was cheerful, light-hearted, and optimistic, even though he had no job. He would travel from town to town looking for work, always expecting to find some. One autumn afternoon, his travels took him into the countryside, where he came upon a persimmon tree filled with what looked like ripe fruit. So he picked and tasted one. Amu, amu. Oishii, delicious. And so he ate another. Amu, 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 amu. And soon he was so full, he decided he would sit down under the tree, lean against the trunk, and take a nap. Soon he was fast asleep. Go, 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 go. And while he was sleeping, a very ripe persimmon fruit fell on his head. Picha! Ow! Munya, 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 munya. But soon he was back to sleep. Strangely, a persimmon seed on his head began to sprout and grow and grow and grow into a persimmon tree covered with persimmons. And when the young man woke up, what? Huh? Persimmon tree? Kaki. Oh, so delicious. I know. I will become a persimmon seller. And so he went to the nearest town. Persimmons on my head for sale. Persimmons on my head. Atama? Kaki? Irankane? Wouldn't you like to buy some persimmons from my head? And people bought them willingly, saying, oh, these are so rare and so delicious. And each time he picked a persimmon, another would grow in its place. Oh, how lucky am I! I will become rich. But the other persimmon sellers were not happy. They mumbled and grumbled. Guzu, 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 guzu. It is not fair. We cannot sell any of our persimmons because of that persimmon seller. We must cut down that tree. And that night, while the young man was asleep, goki, 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 they cut down the persimmon tree. And when the young man woke up in the morning, what happened to my persimmon tree? He only had a stump on his head. But then, pyong, 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 mushrooms began to pop out of the stump. Kinoko mushrooms. Oh, they smell so good. I know. I will become a mushroom seller. And so he went back to town. Mushrooms on my head for sale. Mushrooms on my head. Atama, kinoko, irankane? Wouldn't you like to buy some mushrooms from my head? And people bought them willingly, saying, oh, these are so rare and so fresh. And each time he plucked a mushroom from the stump, another would grow in its place. How lucky am I! I will become rich. But the other mushroom sellers were not happy. They mumbled and grumbled. Guzu, 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 guzu. It is not fair. We cannot sell any of our mushrooms because of that mushroom seller. We must dig out that stump. And that night, while the young man was asleep, hurry, 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 they dug out the stump. And when the young man awoke in the morning, what happened to my stump? He had a hole in the top of his head. But then it began to rain, first softly, pita, 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 and then a little more strongly, shto, 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 and then very hard, za, 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 za. It became a pond, and pichon, pichon, fish were jumping in and out of the pond. Fish, sakana. I know, I will become a fish seller. And so he went back to town. Fish on my head for sale, fish on my head. Atama, sakana, irankane? Wouldn't you like to buy some fish from my head? And people bought them willingly, saying, oh, these are so rare and so fresh. And each time he caught a fish, another appeared in its place. But the other fish sellers were not happy. They mumbled and grumbled. Guzu, 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 guzu. It is not fair. We cannot sell any of our fish because of that fish seller. We must fill in that pond. And so that night, while the young man was asleep. Dosa, dosa, dosa. They filled up the pond with soil. And in the morning, when the young man awoke, ah, what happened to my pond? Oh, there is a field up there. I will go and see it. And so with a big backflip, yoisho, he jumped on the top of his own head. Oh my, look at this field. It's perfect for planting rice. I know, I will become a rice farmer. And so he plowed and planted the field. And year after year after year, he had a very fine crop of rice. And he lived meritashi meritashi, happily ever after.
Oh, that was fantastic. Thank you, Linda. What a fantastic story. Although I have to say, I'm not sure if someone said to me, mushrooms on my head, I would actually want to go and eat one. Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. That was
You're
wonderful.
welcome.
Great start to our show. Lovely. So, our next storyteller is Stephen Honegger, who was nominated by his storytelling group, Storymasters. And he's actually telling from Bethesda in Maryland, way over on the East Coast. So, it is getting rather late for him. Now, before Stephen tells his story, he'd asked me to read this disclaimer. So, here we go. This story is presented from the point of view of a young child, actually, Stephen in his youth. Any perceived slight against religion, traditions, aunts, uncles, or other relatives is completely unintentional. I was a kid, for goodness sake. Any resemblance of relatives to your own depicted in this story are also completely unintentional. Names have been changed to protect the innocent or not, and any perceived copyright violations are all figments of your imagination. So off you go with your story, Stephen.
What was your favorite holiday when you were a little kid? Was it your birthday? Maybe it was Halloween. For me, it was Christmas. Christmas Day, in fact, not Christmas Eve. Oh, that was a nightmare. Scarred me for life. Do you want to know why? Well, pull up your chair a little closer to the fire and I'll tell you the story. Christmas Eve always began at my grandparents' house with all my aunts, uncles, and cousins. There were hundreds and hundreds of us under one roof. And we took our coats in and put it on Grandma's bed in the big pile, which was so high. Grandma hired Sherpas to take us to the top so we could make it down safely. And she even left canisters of oxygen along the way in case we needed those. You know, Grandma always had a few extra oxygen tanks nearby to lend a hand. We summited, and when we came back to base camp, we were ready for the next hurdle. Grandma's hugs. Now, Grandma was in a wheelchair, but it was a special wheelchair. It wasn't, there was no motor, no electricity. It didn't even have the big wheels in the back that you turn. No, it had four little casters on the bottom, sort of like the luggage you take in the airport. But make no mistake, she was lightning fast. She got her little legs going, and it was like watching Fred Flintstone in his car driving. And we all ran because Grandma's hugs were hugs of steel. When she caught us, it was like those little stress toys, you know, the ones with the eyes that bulge out. Fun fact, one of my cousins was actually a model for that toy. What a claim to fame. After Grandma had Heimlicked all of her grandkids, we moved on to the next part of the evening, which was the food. Imagine all the food all the relatives brought. Goodness, there were tons of turkeys. There was a mountain of mashed potatoes. Extra duty for those Sherpas who took us up to the top so that we could get our portion and make it down without causing a spud avalanche. Oh, but the desserts. There was a vast desert of desserts. Desserts spelled with 10 S's because it was so big. Seriously, it was 10 times the size of the Sahara Desert. And Grandma actually hired some Bedouin guides and their camels to take us from one side to the other so we could make it back without getting in a powdered sugar typhoon and dust storm. But before that bountiful transcontinental banquet came an epic prayer. My brothers called it the forever prayer. I called it whisker watching because by the time that prayer was over, my clean shaven uncles had beards down to their knees. It was like going to a ZZ Top convention. When it was finally over, I dusted the cobwebs off myself and said, Phew, I survived. The food, not so much. The sweet potatoes had turned sour. The ham had turned the most exquisite shade of emerald green. Oh, spoiler alert. The next sequel to Wicked is going to feature a ham just like that at the banquet of the Emerald City. Oh, but the worst by far was the potato salad. It had gotten fuzzy and green, and I swear it had eyes. Bonsoir, bonjour. Oh my God, and it talks too. Wait a minute. A French potato salad? Oh, oui, I have the Dijon mustard. You may have Dijon mustard, but you have a terrible French accent. Hey, give me the break. It was just made this morning. Hey, who are all these wonderful people out here? Oh, those are storyteller friends. Oh, bonsoir, tout le monde, bonsoir. And what's that little thing buzzing around your head? Oh, this is my new little friend. I call him Mushi. Bonjour. He is, how you say, a French fly. Get it? Okay, yeah, sure. Oh, Stefan, let's have some of that delicious ham. Oh, no, hard pass. Oh, okay, let's get Uncle Maurice to eat it. He'll eat anything. Oh, Uncle Morris. You mean crazy Uncle Morris. Roll your eyes if you have a crazy uncle. Not you. Uncle Morris was crazy, but he had a great heart and he loved the fact that Grandma was so adept in her wheelchair. He hosted a wheelchair race between Grandma and all of our aunts every Christmas. It was a Le Mans style obstacle course in the house, and you could almost hear it happening right now. And they're off up the mountain of coats and down. Oh, Aunt Eileen got caught in the sleeve. That has got to hurt. Out through the bathroom, into the bedroom, another bedroom, down the laundry chute. Don't tell me how they could do that. But oh, Aunt Mildred got caught and caused a wheelchair pileup. But Grandma made it through with a couple of other aunts. They spun through the kitchen, drove through the mashed potato mountain, and out into the streets where people from all over the world were watching. You may have heard of this event. It's called, get this, the Granny, the Granny Grand Prix. Google that. I'm sure you'll find it very fascinating. But we didn't. Us kids weren't worried at all about this. We didn't care about the race. We were there for just one thing, all those presents. And imagine the mountain of presents that was 10 times higher than the mountain of coats. Oh, Sherpas, come and help us. So they ran up to the top, and one by one, they dropped all the presents down to us, and we opened them all at once because we'd be there all night if we had to do it one at a time. So there was paper, bows, ribbons, glitter flying all over the place. It was like a demented scrapbook party, and it rained down like a ticker tape parade at the finish line of the race. And crazy Uncle Morris, he was trying to be so helpful. He took all that paper and put it all in one pile, which was 5 times bigger than he was. And he took that paper and shoved it into the fireplace. Boosh! The astronauts in the International Space Station looked down on the Earth and said, Oh, what a beautiful glow in the night sky. But all we saw were our uncles dancing around with their beards on fire. All except Grandpa. Yeah, Grandpa couldn't grow a beard for some reason, but he had something else. You guessed it, he had the world's longest nose hairs. So long, in fact, that sometimes he would trip over them. But Grandma was always there to the rescue with a pair of scissors. Snip, Sometimes it got a little bit tough. And Grandpa was mobile again. Say, do you remember those old spaghetti westerns where the outlaws have a big keg of gunpowder they take to the bank and have this long fuse that they light from far away? Well, that fuse was like Grandpa's nose hairs with Morris's fire. But as Grandma neared the finish line and took the checkered flag, like she always does, she raced to Grandpa with her scissors and snip, snip, saved Grandpa's head from exploding. Wow, amidst all this chaos, our parents said, you know what? I think it's time we should go home. So quietly, they rounded all of us kids up. We got in the car, and looking out the rear window, we saw fire engines from every state coming by to help put out the fire. There were helicopters dropping water by the bucket load. Oh, and even Santa Claus got in on the action. He was overhead looking at his watch. Oh, right on time, just like last year's Grandma's fire again. And he had his own water to drop. Bombs away. Stay warm, but not too hot. Ho, ho, ho. And sped off, as we did. And when we got home, we quietly got into our pajamas, hung our stockings by the fire, went to bed, pulled our covers over our heads, and shivered in fear. Because while other kids had visions of sugar plums dancing in their heads, we had visions of our uncles dancing around with their beards on fire. But I was scarred for life. But I always left a plate of cookies and a glass of milk for Santa, but never, ever potato salad. Hey, that's not fair. Oh, I want to see this Santa Claus too. Oh, but you'll have to beat Grandma at a wheelchair race before you do that. Ooh, just wait until you see what they do for the 4th of July. Ooh, mon Dieu.
Very good. I couldn't find my unmute. Oh, that was so funny. And who doesn't expect a Christmas with oxygen and, awful hugs and, nose hair and explosions? I mean, really, the nose hair, so many graphic details that I'd rather not have heard. Thank you, Stephen. That was a great story. Loved it. Thank you very much. Right then. So our next storyteller is another David. David Schmidt, and he's coming to us from the Storytellers of San Diego. Although I have to say he's not in San Diego at the moment. He's currently in Mexico City. So we've got such international flavour with our show tonight. So he's going to entertain us with not only a story but also a song. So away you go, David.
Thank you. I'll be telling two tall tales from the American South, and the first one is a tall tale in the form of a song. You might recognize it. Well, the preacher, he went out walking. 'Twas on one Sunday morn. Course, it was against his religion, but he took his gun along. He shot himself some mighty fine quail and one little measly hare. But on his way returning home, he met a great big, grizzly bear. Well, the bear sat down in the middle of the road just as mean as he could be. And the preacher, he commenced to shaking, and he climbed up a sycamore tree. The bear stood up and rolled his eyes and shook his ugly head. The preacher looked up to the skies, and these are the words he said. Oh Lord, you delivered Daniel from the lion's den, delivered Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book do declare. Now Lord, Lord, if you can't help me, for goodness sakes, don't you help that bear. Well, the bear commenced to climb the tree, and that made the preacher sore. The preacher climbed still higher till he couldn't climb no more. And just about then that limb give away, and they both come a tumbling down. When that preacher began to pray, you could hear him 4 miles all around. Oh Lord, you delivered Daniel from the lion's den, delivered Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book do declare. Now Lord, Lord, if you can't help me, for goodness sakes, don't you help that bear. Well, they fought all the way down to the river. Whew, it was a terrible fight. That bear, he was just a hanging on, but the preacher, he was doing all right. He dragged that beast right down in the water. It was 3 times in and out. The bear stood up and he limped away, and the preacher, he commenced to shout, Oh Lord, you delivered Daniel from the lion's den, delivered Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then, now Lord, it may not seem like much from where you sit up there, but the hardest job I ever done was baptizing that bear. Oh Lord, you delivered Daniel from the lion's den, delivered Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book do declare. Now Lord, Lord, if you can't help me, for goodness sakes, don't you help that bear. Yes, Lord, Lord, if you can't help me, for goodness sakes, don't you help that bear. That's the preacher and the bear. Now this story I'm going to share with you is one collected by Richard and Judy Dockery Young. This is the tale of Old Shorty and the Raccoon Skin Hunt. My old pappy, he never could talk straight except when he was drunken, and Weans was powerful poor, what with his inheritance and all. So one day he allowed as how he'd take the old woman off the mantle and kiss his shotgun goodbye, and Weans would go out to hunt up some raccoon skins to go sell at the train station the next time the caboose come by all by itself. Pa, he went outside and he whistled up all the dogs, all except old Shorty. Then he whistled up old Shorty. Now Shorty, he was a purebred, half basset hound, half Georgia cur, half Chihuahua, fast as molasses and mean as milk. Meanwhile, I went out to the horse to saddle up my barn so's I could ride hard and fast to catch up to Pa, who hadn't left yet. I walked my tree stump up alongside old Lightning. Nobody called him that except me. I didn't call him that either. And then I stepped on the horse, jumped on the tree stump facing backwards, and I yelled, Let's go home, Lightning. Well, we lit out of there at a dead walk. We followed Pa and all them dogs, all except old Shorty. Then we followed old Shorty, too, and we rode on down a long, thin, straight trail that curved in and out of the woods till we come to a clearing full of trees with one little bitty cabin standing all by itself in among 12 others just like it. Well, by that point, I'd lost track of Pa and all them dogs, so I figured I'd go and ask after 'em. So I jumped off of my tree stump and left it to graze. I walked up to that cabin and I knocked on the woman, and a door answered. I took off my head and I bowed my hat, and I axed in a brazen, humble sort of way if she'd seen my Pa. Big feller, she says. Yep, says I. On horseback, she says. Yep, says I. With a pack of dogs, she says. Yep, says I. I ain't seen him, she hollered in a whisper and slammed the door in my face and invited me in. I'm sorry, she says, there's nothing to eat in here except cornbread and beans and ham and flapjacks and poke salad and collard greens, but you're welcome to stay as long as you leave. Well, I stayed a while, but then her Bart come up and started dogging at me, and that made me remember Pa and all them hound dogs, all except old Shorty. Then I remembered old Shorty, too. So I headed out and hopped back on my tree stump, and I rode hard and fast to catch up to Pa. But eventually my tree stump tripped over somebody's horse and threw me face down, flat on my back, and it tore my hide and bruised my shirt. So I figured as how I'd go and see my sweetheart Sally, so she'd patch my hide with a thimble and thread. Well, Sally, she was so happy to see me, she'd had the door nailed shut. So I went on inside, I threw my hat on the fire, and I stirred up the bed. And then Sally and me, we sat down right close to each other, me in one corner and her in the t'other one, and we commenced to playing the cards. And I drawed a heart, And she drawed a diamond, and then her pa come home and drawed a club. So I headed back on out, jumped on my tree stump, and rode hard and fast to catch up to pa again. Pretty soon I come upon a whole bunch of raccoons running around without their skins on, so I knew that pa had been there already. I jumped off in my tree stump and left it to graze, but my stump he ran off and sold my saddle to some city feller. But I followed them dogs, and right directly all them hound dogs they commenced to trail, all except old Shorty. Then old Shorty trailed too. And then all the dogs treed, all except old Shorty, and then old Shorty treed too. I looked up in that big old sick-eyed buckamore tree, and I seen two huge, enormous, full-grown baby possums. Well, I climbed up that tree and follered after trying to catch them critters, but the possums, they started throwing acorns at me. I climbed out on a sturdy dogwood limb to try and catch 'em, but I slipped into a knothole and I fell through the tree. Well, them possums, they started laughing at me so hard that they fell out of that tree too. So I grabbed them and I killed them by beating their heads right against mine like this. Then I cut off their tails right up close behind their ears, and we headed off toward home. When we got home, we didn't have nothing to show for it but 2 possum tails, 100 raccoon skins, a bruised shirt, no hat, no saddle, and all of the dogs. All except old Shorty. Him and the tree stump, they never did come home ever again.
Oh, David, that was excellent. Gosh, how on earth did you remember all of that? I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that just to find all the different things that you said. That was really clever. Loved it. Thank you very much indeed. Wonderful story. Right then, on we go. And our next teller is another David, but Dave Tarvin. But he's from Sacramento Storytellers Guild, and he's local to the Sacramento area. So let us welcome for another tall tale, or is it? Maybe it's true. It's Dave Tarvin. Off you go, Dave.
Oh, shoot. I dropped my timer. Hey, my name's Dave. Happy to be here. I ran into my old buddy, Ralph, today. And that reminded me of this story. You see, Ralph and I, we grew up in the same small town. We went to school together. You know, when we got older, we got married about the same time. We had children around the same time. We even bought homes in the same neighborhood. I have just known him forever. But the big thing between Ralph and I is that we are competitive. It all started when we were teenagers. At the local roller rink. There wasn't anything else to do in that town except to skate at the rink. And there was this roller derby thing, and that's where it started. Well, when I was about 25, I was working for this contractor. And I went to work on a Monday morning, and there was no job. The guy had gone belly up, and I was out of work, and I needed money. I had a home, a wife, kids, car payment. And so Ralph hooked me up with a job. Ralph worked in a lime mine as a truck driver. Now, the lime mine is way up in the mountains by Cool, California. And the mine itself is just a big pit, a huge pit in the middle of this mountain. And the limestone is processed, put in a truck, and driven to Sacramento. And he got me a job as a truck driver because that's what he did. He was a truck driver there. And so this one particular day, we had made our morning runs and we were sitting in the lunchroom, guys talking. And all of a sudden, he bet me that he could beat me in the next run. So we timed the runs. And so he left. I waited about 15 minutes. They finished loading up my truck and I got going. And I started up out of the mine. Now, to get out of the mine, you had to go up the mountain and then down the mountain to Highway 49 to Highway 50 to Sacramento. And I was climbing up that grade and I was going right into, I was about in the middle of Broken Bone Curve when all of a sudden that truck started to sputter, and then all of a sudden it just died right in the middle of the turn. And I sat there and I was just sitting right on that brake. I was terrified. I mean, I'm up pretty close to the top of the mountain. And so I just sat there for a while trying to figure out what to do. This was before cell phones, so I couldn't call anybody, and I wasn't that great of a truck driver, really. And so I didn't know what to do. And as I sat there, all of a sudden, I heard like this hiss. And then I heard this kind of a whistle sound. And then I heard a pop. And then the truck started to roll back. The brakes blew. And now I started to panic. I was terrified. I'm trying to steer down out of this curve and go straight down this straightaway back down the mountain backwards. And I'm doing that with the mirrors and the rear view mirror. And at the bottom of the straightaway was an S turn. And I got through that first turn and I almost made the second. But the rear end of that just went over the edge a little bit, and that was enough to just tip it over and send me sailing backwards in that truck down the side of the mountain. Now, those trucks are huge. They weigh 36 tons fully loaded. That's close to 50 or 80,000 pounds. And that truck just went faster and faster and faster as we went down that mountain. And I was steering, trying to miss bushes and trees and whatever was there. I just kept trying to miss stuff, hoping against hope that I would get out of that somehow. And then all of a sudden, this big Doug fir tree all of a sudden it was just there, and bang! I hit it with that truck. It stopped the truck, but that tree just shook. And as it shook, debris started falling down onto the cab and onto the truck, leaves and branches and cones and this and that. Just all this stuff came pouring down as the tree just shook. It seemed like it shook forever. And then all of a sudden, I heard a hiss. And then I heard a whistling sound like something was falling very, very fast. And then all of a sudden there was this big boom, a thud in the back of the truck. Something big landed in the back of my truck. Well, I opened the door and I stepped out. So on those big trucks, just kind of up in the door, they have this little step so you can step up there and look in the back of the truck, which was what I did. And I peeked in the back, and there in the back of the truck was this huge mass of black fur. And it was just sitting there, and I was staring at it. I couldn't see what it was. And then all of a sudden, it started to kind of stir and to move just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, it started to rise up. And it got bigger, and it kept going up and up and up. And then all of a sudden, the arms appeared, and they went out like this, and there stood 9 foot tall, 800-pound Bigfoot. And he was looking at me right in the eyes, and he was not happy. He glared, he leaned forward like this, and he roared at me. Wow, let me tell you, scared me to death. I fell off of that little step, and when I hit the ground, I just started rolling, and I was rolling down the hill, and I don't know what that did to Bigfoot, but let me tell you, he jumped off of that truck and he started running, chasing me down the mountain. Eventually, I got my footing and I ran, and pretty soon I got to the bottom of that mountain and I burst out of the forest. And there was a beach, the American River. I ran across the beach, I dove into the river, and I swam. I got out on the other side and I started to run. But I stopped and I turned around to look back at the forest to see if Bigfoot was still coming after me. And as I looked back, I saw him coming down and I saw him burst out of the forest. And as soon as that happened, I saw his eyes. His eyes got big as saucers. And he started flailing like this, like he's trying to slow himself down, but he couldn't because of the momentum. I mean, he was huge, 9 foot, 800 pounds. He wasn't just going to stop. And he went flying into the American River. And when he hit that water, he started screaming. He started screaming and yelling and flailing around, and water was going everywhere. And I stood there on the opposite side watching him, and I thought, what is happening? What is he doing? And that was when I had an epiphany. I realized Bigfoot couldn't swim. So I don't know, that just changed something in me. No longer was I afraid. I ran back to the river. I dove into the river. I swam to Bigfoot. And as I approached him, I dove down deep as I could. And I grabbed that big calf of his. And I pulled and I pulled and I pulled and I pushed and I pushed and I pushed until his foot touched the riverbed. And when that happened, he stood up. Because you see, it was the summertime and the river was only 5 foot deep. Bigfoot, 9 foot. He was fine. But then there we were, both of us in the river, me looking at him looking at me. We were only about this far apart, and I was scared. Bigfoot reached out and threw his arms around me, and I started screaming. He let go. He realized he was hurting me. And when there we were, just standing looking at each other. And then he kind of smiled. I could have swore it was a smile or something. And he just stared at me for a minute. And then he turned and he walked out of the river, across the beach, and into the forest. And as he entered the tree line, he stopped. He turned around and he looked at me. And he went like this. And then he disappeared into the forest. And I got to tell you, to this day, when I go up in that area, sometimes I feel little hairs sticking on the back of my neck, and I feel like somebody's watching me. And when that happens, I put my hand out the window and I wave, because I know Bigfoot is watching me.
Excellent. Great story, Dave. And I'm so pleased you escaped from Bigfoot. At least we know now. Does Bigfoot exist? The
By the
answer.
skin of my teeth.
That was great. Loved all the details. Thank you so much, Dave. Wonderful story. Lovely. Well, are you all enjoying it so far? I mean, what fantastic stories we've had. And they're all so different and so fun. Loving it. Really enjoying the show. So we've got three more storytellers, so don't go anywhere at all. And we're having a tandem telling next. We've got two storytellers from the Storytellers of San Diego. We've got Patty Christensen and James Nelson. And they often tell together. And they're based in Southern California, in Oceanside, San Diego. So hopefully they're going to be coming onto your screen any moment. We can't see them at the moment, but hopefully they'll be there. James, but there they are. I can see you. They've been having a few internet problems today, so hopefully they've got this sorted. Doesn't look great at the moment. You've frozen, both of you. Are you there? Are you with us? Well, maybe what we could do, you two, is if you want to just take a moment, maybe reset your computer, that would help. We'll see whether Marty wants to come on next and tell her story, and then we can come back to you in a minute, unless you've got this. Marty. So hold on one second, Marty. So James and Patty will come back to you in a minute. You go and sort yourself out. Marty's going to, she wasn't quite ready because I said I'd give her a bit of notice. So she's been jumping to it. So Marty, if you want to get yourself ready, well, I'll just introduce you. Hold on a second. So Marty Fulshaw is a guest teller this week. We have one each month, sorry. And Marty comes from the Seattle Storytellers Guild, and she's telling from Ellensburg in Washington. So Marty, if you're all ready to go, off you go with your story.
Okay, I'm going to set myself to gallery because I like looking at everybody. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I was finishing up my novel and under a lot of pressure from my publisher and my editor to get my act together and finish the dang novel. It was almost done. It was in its last edits, but I was working from home. And as you can imagine, there were home projects. There was my husband, Dale. There were two cats throwing up everywhere. There was all these distractions. So I decided I was going to rent a cabin by the Pacific Ocean. So I got online and I looked for someplace perfect and I found the place. It was right on the ocean. It was beautiful, 2 bedrooms, a small place I could rent for 3 months. So I rented it, got in my car, drove the 4 hours to the place, and set up housekeeping, except as I was driving there, my GPS put me on the beach, which we're allowed to drive on the beach here sometimes, don't get me started, but it wanted me to keep going into the water. And I'm not one of those people who follows the GPS no matter what it tells me to do. So I went back into the town to ask around if anybody knew where 47 North, 256 West Pacific was. And everybody I talked to assured me there was no Pacific in that town, no street called Pacific. So I wandered around and finally I found a postal delivery person, and I figured if anybody knew where this address was, they would know. And she said, yeah, follow me. And so I got back in my car and she drove onto the beach. It was low tide. And she pointed west and she said, see that house out there? And I looked, I was like, oh my gosh, it's on the Pacific. And all of a sudden, all the stuff the landlady had told me started making sense. Like that to get to the place, I had to walk straight ahead toward the front door and the steps leading up to the front door. So I got out of the car, I took off my shoes, rolled up my pants, and started walking to the cabin just to kind of check it out. And as I'm walking through the water, I started noticing my feet weren't even getting, well, my feet were getting wet, but nothing above my ankles was getting wet. And I looked down and the floor of the ocean was about 2 feet below me. And as soon as I looked down, it was like Wile E. Coyote running to the end of the cliff and not falling until he looked down. I looked down and right into the water up to my knees. I couldn't climb back on, so I went back to the beginning, got back up, started walking straight to the house and stayed on the water, walking on the water, and got up to the house, put in my code in the door, and went in, and it was exactly what I was looking for, exactly what it looked like online. And now I understood why it had ocean views on all 4 sides. It also had a deck all the way around. As you walk in, for one thing, you could smell the cedar on top of the smell of the ocean. And to the left was a small living room. To the right was a small kitchen and a hallway. And at the end, on the west end of the house, there were 2 bedrooms. And I decided the south bedroom, the one on the left, would be my office, and the one on the right would be my sleeping area. So I went back to the car, got all my stuff, all my groceries, all my clothes and things in the computer and took it in. The house was off grid, totally solar. The landlady had told me she would bring me fresh water once a week, and now I understood why that was. And I saw what a cistern was. The internet was spotty, which is what I needed, so I wouldn't go down those rabbit holes. I could get internet in town. And that day, I just set up my office and unpacked and went back into town to check things out. And the town was really cute. It had, little shops, an art gallery, a coffee shop, all the little things that you'd expect a small seaside town to have. And I went walking on the beach, which was just beautiful. Went to bed, started work the next day, and did my writing, my editing on my book, went for a swim, and amazingly, like I've been a swimmer a lot, but not in the ocean, but I was strong. I could swim for 30 minutes with hardly losing my breath. It was amazing. And then I would walk on the beach, and again, hours walking on the beach without even hardly losing my breath. And let me tell you, I am in my extremely late 60s, and yet I had all this energy. I felt like I was 30 again. So I would work on my book about 4 hours a day, and then read, work on a new novel, walk on the beach, go into town, get down those rabbit holes sometimes, connect with my husband and let him know things were going well. And I was waiting for those West Coast storms. And finally, after I was there about 3 weeks, one of those storms came in from the west. And if you've ever been to the Pacific, you know these huge storms come in. And I was so excited because I live on the east side of Washington where we just don't get a lot of that. And I got on my back deck with all my clothes, my rain clothes, all set to get soaking wet. And this storm came rolling in, wind and rain, sheets of it, lightning. And not a drop fell on the house, on the cabin. I walked all the way around. The cabin was bone dry. The storm was all around me. When I would swim, there'd be dolphins, of course, birds. I don't know gulls. They're impossible to tell. Ducks, all these critters that would distract me. But I got in my work, and I finally finished my novel and went into town to send it off to the publisher and editor. And I still had a month at the cabin. So I called Dale, my husband, and I said, come on out and join me here. So he was coming. I was on the beach waiting for him, reading my book. And he came, walked right past me again. And I was like, Dale, I'm right here. And he looked and he said, did you dye your hair? And I was like, no, I would never do that. And he said, it's black and your face doesn't have any wrinkles. And I should tell you, I never look at myself. I've got curly hair. I do this, I'm done. And I realized no wonder I felt so healthy. Unaged, I guess. Anyway, we started walking to the house, and I told him to walk straight behind me. And he's walking along, and I hear a splash, and he falls in, and I told him to go back to the beginning and try again. And I told him, you gotta believe, just walk it. And he splashed again. It took him 3 or 4 tries to finally walk on the water all the way into the little cabin. And we carried all this stuff in. And we've been married a really long time, like almost 40 years. And when you're married that long and you're in your extremely late 60s like we are, your sex life sort of goes down. But we were, let me tell you, on each other like rabbits the whole time he was there. We just had a great time. And finally, we had to go home. My book got published. I got a Pulitzer, thank you. Dale and I go there every year for at least 2 weeks, sometimes up to a month. And if you want to go there, just Google cabinonthepacific.com, but make your reservation really early because they fill up really quickly these days. Thank you.
Oh, what a wonderful story, Marty. I am going to Google Cabin on the Pacific as soon as this show's over. For goodness sake, it makes you feel like you're 30. I'm all for it.
Thank you.
And well done on the Pulitzer. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you for jumping in when you weren't expected to. That was really good. Now, have we got Patty and James?
Have you got us?
I think we're here with
Yay.
sound and
Yay.
picture.
There you are. Oh, I'm so pleased you're
It's
here.
it's another whole story that we won't tell you how we got here. But
Hey, technology, honestly, can't live with it, can't live without it, can you? So let me go back and I'm going to reintroduce you both.
thank you.
So we've got Patty Christensen and James Nelson Lucas, and they're from the Storytellers of San Diego. And they often tell together in tandem stories, and they're based in Southern California in Oceanside in San Diego. So let's hope now that they can actually tell the story and the internet doesn't tweak them again. Off you go, you two.
Thank you.
Right. Well, poor little Bill, he bounced right out of the back of that wagon and landed plop right on the hot desert floor right there on the banks of the Pecos River.
Now his family was headed west, like way west in Texas.
Yeah.
And there was a passel of kids, for 10 or 12. You don't even know how many kids. So much time went by, they didn't even miss that one baby.
So much screaming and yelling and caterwauling.
They went along. Then
Boom.
a few days later, they realized what happened to Bill.
Well, poor Bill was there, left on the banks of the Pecos River. While he was nearly buck naked, had nothing but his short breeches on, and he was wailing and a caterwaul. Oh, he was crying so bad, just sitting there on the desert floor all dirty. And,
Well, he attracted attention of a grandpa coyote who came over and sniffed and smelled and didn't know what that little naked thing was, so picked him up by the scruff of his neck, brought him back, and dropped him in the middle of his pack.
Now the pack, they're looking at this hairless creature, just thinking, he's not one of us. I don't know who this boy is. We don't want him hanging around. But then
Grandpa grabbed a hunk of raw meat, threw it in, and that Bill, he proved himself. Indeed, he must have been a coyote.
Yeah. Yeah, he learned all the coyote ways, Pecos Bill did. He learned all the coyote ways, and they took him in, and he learned all the critter ways too. He learned about the armadillo, he learned about the bobcats, he learned about the snakes, he learned all kinds of things.
And he grew up to be mighty tough, mighty mean.
Not afraid of anything.
Well, some years went by, and one day, an honest to goodness cowboy,
yes.
Cowboy Jake came up, and he saw the funniest thing. This, well, naked man out like drinking like a dog. And he said, "Boy, what are you?"
Can't you tell I'm a coyote? Look at me, I'm all covered with fleas.
Well, don't coyotes have tails?
Wait a second. Fangs? Ears? No. What?
I'm sorry to tell you, look at that reflection in the river. You are not a coyote. You are a man.
I guess I am.
And so I think you should come back with me to the ranch. And so he got him a little bit of clothes, and they went back on the horse. And, well, Bill, and they said, "Well, Bill who?" And
scruffy looking man, scruffy, all red hair, all scraggly, wouldn't even comb his hair. Oh my gosh. And all the other ranchers, they were like, who is this strange boy?
Said, "It's Bill from down by the Pecos River. Well, let's just call him Pecos Bill." Well, As it turns out, Bill was a fast learner.
Yeah, he learned all the ranching ways. He learned how to be the best cowboy you could be. And oh, he found himself a challenge. They all knew about this horse out in the hills. They called this horse Lightning. They thought this horse, nobody could break this horse. You try to catch this horse, he'd kick you to the ground and break your neck. But Bill thought,
Some of them even called him the Widowmaker.
yeah.
But Bill looked at that horse.
Aha, that horse is gonna be mine. So Bill went out into the hills and he lassoed that horse Lightning. Oh my gosh, it was a battle. Oh, he did all he could do. And finally he broke that Lightning. Ah, Lightning, you might be tough, but you ain't tougher than me.
Well, time went by, and Bill and Lightning, well, one day they heard there was a gang up in the hills, the Hell's Gate gang.
Oh, fearsome, fearsome beasts these men are. They say they would bite nails for fun.
And so Bill thought,
They sound tough. Sounds like somebody needs some breaking down and settle them down. That
so he headed off. He was going to go meet up with that gang.
Got himself on the back of Lightning and headed on out.
Well, he didn't get very far down the road when poor Lightning stepped his foot in a hole and broke his foot.
Oh, no good at all, no good at all. But this might be tough, but it ain't tougher than me. Come on, Lightning. I'm going to carry you on my shoulders and we'll keep on going. Oh.
So he put him up and he walked on along. Well, it didn't get much further when all of a sudden he heard a sound. It was a rattlesnake.
Oh, well, Mr. Rattlesnake. When they fought and they
It was mean. It was terrible. It was tough.
All right, you may be tough, but you ain't tougher than me. I'm going to take you on and wrap you around and use you as a lasso. On we go.
Well, they went a little bit further down, rope around his arm, horse around his neck, when who should jump out but a mountain lion.
Oh, he grabbed that mountain lion. They fought and they tussled, and well, you guessed it, he was not tougher than Pecos Bill. You might be tough, but you ain't tougher than me. And he grabbed that saddle off of Lightning and dropped it right on the mountain lion, and off he rode.
So, all he's going on. It wasn't too long till he got to that place where all of those mean old gang was up there. But they saw here was this guy coming, carrying a horse, rattlesnake around his arm, riding on a mountain lion.
Who's in charge around here?
They all looked at each other and they said, as of today, you are.
Well, they might be tough, but they ain't tougher than me. Well, he taught these villains and bandits, he taught them the ways of ranching. And he got to such a big ranch, he became quite wealthy. He had big ranch land, but he had something missing in his heart.
Well, one day he was walking along a beautiful river when he saw the most amazing thing.
A giant fish, a big fish, a carp just jumping, whoosh, 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 in and out of the Rio Grande River. And oh my gosh, what's that on back?
It was a beautiful woman.
Oh my gosh, riding a beautiful, get a little catfish down. Who are you? Who are you?
Well, my name is Slewfoot Sue.
And she disappeared down on the Rio Grande. Splish, splash, splash. Oh, he was smitten immediately. He knew immediately he had to marry this woman. He loved her just at first sight. He spent weeks and weeks looking for her. Nobody knew where she was. He went up mesas and hills and down in valleys, and he finally found her house.
And he proceeded to do a little courting.
Ah, yes, there's flowers, there's candy, and maybe a cactus or two. Oh, and they became the most popular and most famous couple west of the Mississippi.
And one day he popped the question.
Oh, my dear Sue, will you marry me?
Well, I would. Two different things.
Yes.
First, I would, but I want a dress with a big bustle.
Well,
with a big bustle with a spring.
I can get a fine big bustle dress from New York City.
Well, and then I want to ride that horse.
Whoa, you're going to ride Lightning. You know, some call Lightning Widowmaker. Nobody can ride Lightning but me.
I'm going to ride him. I can ride anything that crawls, that walks, that flies. Let's do it. So they had a big wedding. Everybody came together. And then they said, Pecos Bill, will you take this catfish woman?
I will.
Then Slewfoot Sue, will you take this Coyote Man? Yes, I will. And so she said, bring me on the horse.
Oh, well.
Brought that horse in. It was exciting. It was going. She hopped on.
Now she's flaring.
And said, here we go. Woo! Woo!
While Lightning, he got so mad, he kicked so hard, woo, and he was bucking, and he was a kicking. A matter of fact, he kicked that so hard that Slewfoot Sue just shot straight up into the sky, way over the moon. Woo!
And she came down. Boing.
That big old bustle, boing, was just like a spring. Up in the air they go, wee, up and down. Poor Bill was panicking. Oh my goodness gracious, my beloved, my wife is all. And no, he saw his salvation. Well, there was a fearsome tornado coming down the way. Oh my gosh, the tornado's whipping and a hollering and a. Well, he grabbed his lasso and he caught that tornado. And then, woo, he rode that tornado. She was bouncing. Finally, he caught her. Woo, right in his hands.
Now, some say they're still up there in the tornadoes. Ooh. But we heard they landed in California.
Right here.
Met some kin. Still
having adventures at all time.
And they say this is the probably mostly true story
of Pecos Bill
and Slewfoot Sue.
Wow, you two. There's so much energy with you both telling a story. That was fantastic. Oh, I loved it. I'm so pleased you got your internet sorted. Otherwise, we'd have missed that wonderful story. Oh, and coming from England, that's just so American. I love it. Thank you very much. Love how you tell together like that. It's fantastic. Well done. Okay, so what a fantastic show. Honestly, I'm so thrilled. And now, unfortunately, we have our final teller. But last but definitely not least, we've got the most amazing, renowned storyteller, Tim Araneta. And he was nominated by 6 Feet Apart Productions. Thank you. You can thank me later. And he's just located in Berkeley, which is, again, just across the bridge from me. And we love him so much. So welcome for our last storyteller tonight, Tim Araneta.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. And I wanted to take this time to pay tribute to a really influential person for the storytelling community, a storyteller by the name of Steve Sanfield, who passed 11 years ago about this time at the age of 77. He was a remarkable man, a wonderful storyteller steeped in Jewish folklore, and he knew a lot of great African American legends. But he was not just a great storyteller. He had all kinds of twists and turns in his life. He was a freedom rider in the early 60s, arrested in Houston and beaten in jail for trying to integrate a lunch counter. Apparently, when he was growing up in Lynn, Massachusetts, he was the state yo-yo champion. I met him off and on at various storytelling events over the years. He was the founder of the Sierra Storytelling Festival, which is still going on. And at one day, he was telling me, Tim, did I ever tell you about the time when I learned to ride a horse? I'm like, you learned to ride a horse in Massachusetts? He said, no, Tim. I was actually a cowboy down in South Texas. I said, wait, how did you end up there? He says, well, after I graduated University of Massachusetts, I was looking for an adventure and I took a job riding cattle down in South Texas. So I learned to use a rope and herd steer, and we would drive them from South Texas 700 miles up to Abilene, Kansas, where the stockyards and trains would, ship those cattle out across the country. Steve, I said, you do that a long time? No, not long, because I'll tell you why, Tim. I figured out how to make my fortune in Abilene, Kansas. And Steve told me that after his first cattle drive, that long, hard drive, driving cows all the way up from South Texas into Kansas, he had celebrated the completion of the journey and decided to treat himself to lunch at a French restaurant. Now, Abilene, Kansas is not a big town, and there was one restaurant called Frenchie's, and he went in there to spend his money, and he saw something on the menu he'd never seen before. It was turtle soup. Well, he decided he had to try it, and wouldn't you know it, it was the most delicious thing Steve had ever tasted. And it was a good thing, too, because when the waiter brought the bill, Steve could not believe it. It was $4 for a cup of soup. A cup, not a bowl, a cup of soup. And this was in 1957, when for $3, you could get a complete steak dinner with baked potato and a salad. $4, said Steve. He told the waiter. Why is it so expensive? Well, obviously, said the waiter, there's no turtles around here. We have to bring them in from the Atlantic Ocean. So, it costs us $2 a turtle. And it takes a whole turtle to make 1 cup of soup. And Steve, he liked the soup so much, he paid the bill gladly. But he got thinking. And he said, Tim, $2 a turtle? I just figured out a way to make a fortune. You see, down in South Texas, where I learned to ride a horse and rope cattle, that place, that desert is just crawling with tortoises. The Texas tortoise eats prickly pears, and they're just lousy with them. They're always getting underfoot. People would be glad to get rid of them, and I could bring them up here to Frenchie's and get $2 a turtle. Why, that's easy money. So Steve, he left Abilene, Kansas, went all the way back down to South Texas, got himself a gunny sack, and he started collecting every tortoise he could. It was pretty easy work because tortoises aren't that fast. And he'd fill up a gunny sack, he'd bring them back to the corral and dump them in there. And after just a couple of weeks, he had filled the corral with tortoises. He had 30,000 head of turtles, and he was ready to make some serious money. 30,000 turtles, that's $60,000. And he turned in his notice at the ranch he'd been working at. He said, I'm not riding with the cattle anymore. I'm going to drive these turtles up to Kansas. No one wanted to go with him, so Steve reckoned he'd do it himself. So he opened the gate to the corral and yah, he cried. He got up on his horse and he let the turtles fly. Well, walk, actually. Took 4 days for them to get out of the corral and start the journey north. Now, on a good day, they could make maybe 100 yards, maybe 150 yards, but it's 700 miles to Abilene, Kansas. And turtles, those herds of turtles are in very much just like cattle, Steve told me. You see, they spook easily. And so you have to keep an eye out for rattlesnakes and coyotes, anything that might scare them, because you don't want to start a stampede. And then at night, of course, the turtles, just like the cows, would tend to wander off. So Steve had to get up on his horse and ride the perimeter of the herd, make sure none of the turtles got away. Well, after about a week or so, he wasn't getting any sleep. He needed a new solution. And he told me, Tim, I found the perfect way. Keep me sane and keep me healthy by getting enough sleep. Every night at sundown, I'd get down off my horse and I'd walk out into the herd and I'd turn each tortoise out on its back. And each turtle was just staring up at the stars, waving its little paws in the air. And that way they wouldn't wander off at night and I could get a good night's sleep. And in the morning, I'd flip them back over and we'd start the ride again up north towards Abilene. Well, it was slow going and a long way, and the weeks turned into months, and Steve told me he realized he had a problem. These were tortoises used to the desert, and the winter was coming on. There was going to be ice and sleet, and he didn't think that his herd was going to make it through, and he wasn't going to make it to Kansas by the time by wintertime. Steve had an idea. He paid a farmer to plow a field, and into that trench, he herded the turtles. And then he covered them all up with dirt. He figured they'd overwinter and hibernate there. And it worked out better than Steve expected. Because over the months that they were buried under the ground, when springtime came and he uncovered them, he didn't have 30,000 turtles anymore. He had close to 90,000 turtles, because it turns out, covered up and not going anywhere, boy turtles and girl turtles, well, they get to doing what turtles do. And the Texas tortoise can lay anywhere from 1 to 5 eggs in a clutch. So now Steve got going with 90,000 turtles. And he kept heading north to Kansas. But like I said, it's 700 miles. It's a long way to get there. And a second winter came on, so he had to bury them again. And wouldn't you know, after that, he had nearly 200,000 turtles. And after the third winter, why, he still wasn't in Kansas, but he found himself with nearly 500,000 head of turtles. Well, he took that herd of turtles, and he had just one last river to cross. It was the Red River. And he on his horse was guiding those tortoises right down to the river. And Steve told me that's when he realized out of the 35 species of turtles that live in Texas, there's only one of them that does not know how to swim. Steve told me this could have been a disaster. But he said, Tim, you know what? Every creature on God's earth, no matter how big or how small, has a built-in instinct for survival. And when those tortoises hit the water, they didn't know how to swim, but by God, they taught themselves. And 500,000 tortoises swam across the Red River and got to the other side. And Steve was finally able to parade them all down the main street of Abilene, Kansas, to get them down. And he marched them right up to Frenchie's restaurant, where he noticed a sign taped to the front door. It said, closed, out of business. I'm going back to Paris, France. Signed, Frenchie. There I was, Tim, Steve told me. There I was with 500,000 turtles in the middle of Abilene, Kansas, and no restaurant wanting to take them off my hands. Steve, what did you do? Only thing I could do, Tim. Turned them around and drove them back home. Steve had a lot of twists and turns before he became a full-time professional storyteller and a wonderful poet. And so, Steve, on the 11th anniversary of your passing, I celebrate you. Thank you for all the stories.
Oh, Tim, thank you. That was really fantastic. And what an amazing story. I love that. And I know it's a book, so I'm going to have to go and buy that book. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, wow, what a fantastic evening of stories. I am so thrilled for everybody. Thank you to everybody for telling, and thank you everybody for coming and being part of the audience, because obviously there's no point telling if there's no audience. Now we're going to bring them all back on one at a time and give them a chance to say, what they've got coming up, or just to say thank you. So first of all, let's bring back our first storyteller, Linda. And I can't do that. Hi, Linda. Thank you so much.
What
Linda,
a fun
coming?
evening. Sure. Next month I'll be telling another lie with Ann and Norm's Good Liars Club. I think Tim, Aaron, and I are both going to be lying. Only next month I'll be telling a story more based on my life, something that maybe happened to me.
Oh. Well, I'll definitely be doing my best to come to that show. I do love Anna Norm's Good Liars Club. Put the link in the chat.
Okay, I shall.
Thank you, Linda. I loved your story.
Thanks.
Next up was Steve Honegger. So, Steve, and you're still with us. Yay! All the way from the East Coast. Well done.
I am. How could I miss this? This is so amazing. Let me tell you,
it's difficult.
I am happy to become a SAC member now. I'll make this work. I don't care about the time difference. This is not, I don't want to miss this. This is so amazing.
Good.
So, and I'm looking forward to maybe telling some more stories. I love this. It doesn't all have to be tall tales, right? You have different themes.
Yeah, no, all sorts of genre. If you go to the SAC website, which we'll put that in the chat, I think hopefully Prakrati or Ed Lewis will put that in the chat for us. Then you can go, it tells you what genre is coming up next, and we have some slots in some of those. So definitely do. Definitely.
Amazing.
And SAC's such a wonderful organization.
It is, and I'm so happy for Tina to introduce me to this opportunity here and to work with Story Masters. There's some great storytellers there too. So
they are fantastic.
A plug for that too. So one of these days I'm going to make it to the West Coast and hopefully be in person for some of these events too.
Well, we've got the Bay Area Storytelling Festival coming in April, so you definitely pop over to April if you're going to, because that would be worth coming to.
Great, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Steve. And our third storyteller was David Schmidt, who told an amazing story. I don't know how you managed to get all your mouth around all those different, backwards sentences. That was really impressive. So, David, what have you got coming up?
Thanks, Claire. I do a lot of collecting stories from local areas in Southern California and around the world and writing books of them. I've got several books like that and working on another one. I've been collecting stories for a project through Storytellers of San Diego, our group in a little town in San Diego County called Coronado Island, the home of the Hotel del Coronado. Very famous hotel, very haunted. Lots of ghost stories, the ghost of Kate. You can read all about it in my upcoming book, and I'll put a link to my Amazon author page where you can find some of those other local hometown ghost stories. I love exploring places that people think don't have their own culture, their own folklore, little suburban towns in Southern California where people think nothing happens and it's just nowhere USA. And then it turns out it's got a ton of its own folklore and history and legends. And I love finding that. It gives a place such a sense of place and rootedness. So I'll put the link. You can check out some of my books on Amazon.
Lovely. That's a really great passion to have. Thank you, David. Really enjoyed your story. And then Dave Tarvin, he came up and told us about meeting Bigfoot. So that's quite impressive. Hi, Devin, what have you got coming up?
Well, actually, Saturday night, I'm going to a storytelling event here in Auburn at the old Carnegie Library. And I would invite everybody to go, except it's been sold out.
Oh.
And I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell because they're doing the old, put your name in a hat kind of deal.
Yes.
So, but they told me that in the next couple of months, they're going to move to a different venue that'll hold quite a bit more people. So keep that in mind. There's a new storytelling venue coming in Auburn, California, halfway between San Francisco and Reno. So if you're in the city, you could just stop here, do the storytelling, and go gamble. What a great day trip.
Excellent, Mr. Tourist Guide.
Yes.
It's so nice how much storytelling is really exploding in the Sacramento area, isn't it? Really good.
It is.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. You're part of that. Thank you, David, for coming and telling us that story. And then, we've got Patty and James. So thank you. I'm so pleased you were able to tell your story. Well done. What have you got coming up?
Well, we're looking forward to, David was mentioning Coronado Island. At the library in Coronado, they host our yearly storytelling festival sponsored by the Storytellers of San Diego.
I think this will be our 16th year.
And it'll be on March 21st, full of amazing stories and storytelling. We also have two monthly storytelling venues that the Storytellers of San Diego
One way up in the north end of the county and one down in the south.
So Skybound Dessert Lounge and Coffee House is one, and the other is Tempest Story. Template.
Also in Coronado. We do a lot of stuff in Coronado. We like it there.
Ocean Beach, actually. Template's in Ocean Beach.
Oh, it's Ocean Beach. Oh, sorry.
There we go. And anyway, we've got a lot of storytelling going on in San Diego. So invite y'all to come down south.
Put the link in the chat so that we can all find it. Okay. Everyone save the chat because it's definitely worth saving. Thank you so much, you two. And then Marty Falshaw, let's bring Marty up. And thank you so much for jumping in like that unexpectedly. And tell us what you've got coming up. Can I invite Ghost Island with you, please?
Mostly what I've got coming up is I have a Little Liars group that I host through the Seattle Storytellers Guild on the fourth Monday of every month. And I put the link in and I got a message back that I didn't understand, something about that. But anyway, I put it in the chat. And if you go to Seattle Storytellers Guild, we've got lots of events going on, story swaps on First Friday and guests on Third Friday. And I'm not sure what's coming up next month, but in May, we'll be having Liars again. And I invite anyone who wants to get in touch with me if you want to tell at our Third Friday May event, getting ready for Northwest Storytelling Festival.
Lovely. I love telling lies. It's my favorite thing to do now. Well, thank you, Marty. It was a pleasure to hear you. I'm sure you'll be getting lots of people contacting you. And then that's it, Tim. Look, it appears like a little pixie. Tell us what you've got coming up. Obviously, you're going to be lying again with Linda. What else have you got
And
going?
next week, I'm hosting in Berkeley, California, Tell It on Tuesday, the monthly showcase of local storytellers and theater artists. I'm looking forward for three of the four, I think, are brand new to our showcase. I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tim. And I would like to say a huge thank you to Prakrati for being our fantastic host, and to everybody at SAC who makes this series possible. So thank you, everyone. Now, as a reminder, this show's been recorded, so it will be posted on the SAC's YouTube channel in a couple of days. So if you've missed it or want to watch it again, because stories were so good, just go to the Storytelling Association of California YouTube channel. The donations in support of SAC can be made after the event because you thought it was so wonderful, and that's through the SAC homepage. We've got a PayPal button there, and there's a SAC website. And if you're interested in being a storyteller in one of our upcoming genre series, you can either contact your storytelling group, get them to nominate you, and if you want to see what the groups are, they're all on the SAC website, or you could go and contact Ed Lewis directly at edlewis@sbcglobal.net.